The body on Somerton Beach.
In December 1948, a body was found on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, Australia. The body was a man who was dressed impeccably in a suit with polished shoes, and his head was slumped against a wall. Authorities thought the cause of death was heart failure, or more likely poisoning, but no trace of poison was found in the autopsy. There wasn't a wallet or any type of identification on the man, and all the tags from his clothing were cut out. The fingerprints that the authorities took of him were also unidentifiable. They even put a photo of the body in the newspapers. And still, no one could identify who the man was. 4 months later, after the body was found, detectives found a hidden pocket that was sewn on the inside of his trousers. Inside the pocket was a rolled-up piece of paper from a rare book called the Rubaiyat. The piece of paper had the words Tamam Shud on it, which means it has ended. After months of looking for the exact book, authorities decide to bury the Somerton man without identification, although a cast was taken of the bust and he was embalmed to preserve him. 8 months later, a man walked into the police station. He claimed that just after the body was found, he found a copy of the Rubaiyat in the back of his car that he kept parked near Somerton Beach. He thought nothing of it until he read about the search in a newspaper article. Sure enough, the book had a part of the final page that was torn, and it matched the piece of paper that was found in the Somerton man's trousers. Inside the book were a phone number and some sort of strange code. The phone number led the authorities to a woman named Jessica Thompson who lived nearby. During her interview, she was very evasive and even claimed she was going to faint when she saw the bust of the Somerton man, but denied knowing him. However, she said she did sell the book to a man named Alfred Boxall. Unfortunately, Alfred Boxall was still very much alive at the time and still had the copy of the Rubaiyat that Jessica had sold him. The code that was found ended up being even more unhelpful, and as of today, it has still yet to be cracked. To this day, the man on Somerton Beach has yet to be identified.
The strange disappearance of D.B. Cooper.
On Wednesday, November 24, 1971, a man identified as Daniel Cooper bought a $20 one-way ticket on Northwest Airlines on Flight 305 from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. Cooper was described as being in his mid-40s, wearing a business suit, an overcoat, brown shoes, a white shirt, and a black tie. He also carried a briefcase and a brown paper bag. Before the flight took off, he ordered a bourbon and soda from a flight attendant. After the plane was airborne, Cooper handed the flight attendant a note. At first, she just put it in her pocket without looking at it. But then Cooper told her, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." Cooper then told her the bomb was in his briefcase and asked her to sit next to him. He opened the briefcase to reveal red-colored sticks, surrounded by an array of wires. Cooper told the flight attendant to write down everything he was saying and then take it to the captain. The note said, "I want $200,000 by 5 p.m. in cash, exclusively in $20 bills, put in a knapsack. I want 2 back parachutes and 2 front parachutes. When we land, I want a fuel truck ready to refuel. No funny stuff, or I'll do the job." During the flight, Cooper put on a pair of dark wraparound sunglasses, which would make it into the official sketch and become famous to anyone investigating the case. A little after 8 p.m., and somewhere in between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, Cooper jumped out of the rear door of the plane with 2 of the parachutes and the money. He was never seen again. Despite an expansive manhunt and over 45 years of searching, no conclusions have been made as to the man's identity or his fate after he jumped. It is called one of the greatest cold cases in FBI and U.S. history.
The disturbing death of Elisa Lam.
On Jan 26, 2013, 21-year-old Canadian tourist Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. When she never checked out on February 1, nor had any contact with her parents, the Los Angeles Police Department was contacted. On February 19, 18 days from the last time she was seen, Lam's body was found floating and naked in a water tank on the roof of the Cecil Hotel. Her body was found due to hotel guests complaining about the hotel's water pressure. One couple even reported that the water was coming out black and had a bad taste. According to the hotel's manager, when Lam first checked in, she was staying in a hostel-style room with other travelers, but later was moved to her own private room due to complaints from her roommates about odd behavior. The last time she was seen was on surveillance footage on the hotel's elevator. The footage showed Lam acting strange and peculiar, almost like she was hiding. She also moved her hands in strange ways, and it looked like she was talking to someone who was out of the security camera's view. After her body and the surveillance footage were found, it was suggested she was on some sort of hallucinogenic drug. Even though Lamb took 4 different medications for her bipolar disorder, toxicology studies reported that there were no traces of any drugs or alcohol that could have contributed to her death. There was also a theory that she was murdered and died as a result of drowning, but the autopsy report showed no evidence of trauma. To this day, no one knows how she was able to access the roof or climb into the water tank and shut the 20-pound lid by herself.
The ghost ship of the Mary Celeste.
On December 4, 1872, a British-American ship called the Mary Celeste was found abandoned and floating in the Atlantic Ocean. It was found to be perfectly seaworthy and with its cargo fully intact, except for a lifeboat, which it appeared had been boarded in an orderly fashion. But why? We may never know because no one on board was ever heard from again. The Mary Celeste set sail from New York, bound for Genoa, Italy, in November 1872. The ship was manned by Captain Benjamin Briggs and 7 crew members, including Briggs's wife and their 2-year-old daughter. Supplies on board were set to last for 6 months, and there were luxurious items on board, including a sewing machine and an upright piano. Historians and commentators generally agree that to abandon such a worthy ship, some extraordinary and alarming circumstances must have arisen. However, the last entry on the ship's daily log reveals nothing unusual, and inside the ship, all appeared to be in order. Conspiracy theories over the years have included mutiny, pirate attack, and even a giant octopus or sea monster attack. However, the cause behind this ghost ship remains unsolved.
The mystery of the Circleville letters.
In 1976, residents of Circleville, Ohio, began receiving threatening mail that has haunted them ever since. The letters were from Columbus, but had no return address. They accused school bus driver Mary Gillespie and the school superintendent of having an extramarital affair. One of the letters was even addressed to Mary's husband Ron that threatened his life if he didn't put a stop to the affair. In 1977, Ron died in a suspicious 1-car crash that involved gunshots. However, when the sheriff ruled the death an accident, other residents of Circleville began receiving letters accusing the sheriff of covering up the so-called accident. Ron's sister's husband, Paul Freshour, was convicted of writing the letters after there was an attempt to murder Mary via a booby-trap-rigged pistol. Even after he was thrown behind bars, the Circleville letters continued throughout the 1970s and the early 1980s. Freshour even received one in prison.
The death of the boy in the box.
On February 25, 1957, a body of an unidentified boy was found in a box in an illegal dumping ground near Philadelphia. The boy was estimated to be around 4 to 6 years old, weighed about 30 pounds, and stood around 3'3". He was found naked but wrapped in a blanket. His hair was recently cut, and his body was recently washed clean. There were small scars on his chin, groin, and left ankle, some of which proved he went through a small medical procedure. He was found with blunt force trauma to the head that was determined to be the cause of death, and there were no witnesses. The body was found by a young man who was walking through the abandoned lot. Strangely, the man waited a whole day before contacting the police, and even a second man had previously found the boy's body, but had not contacted the police because he didn't want to get involved. With the cold weather and delayed phone call, police weren't able to accurately estimate the time of the boy's death. In order to identify the boy, the body was kept in the morgue, while visitors from 10 different states tried to look for identifiable marks, to no avail. Police sent out 400,000 flyers of the boy to police stations, post offices, and courthouses all over the country. Even the American Medical Association sent out a description of the boy, but it led nowhere. The police compared the boy's footprints to hospitals in the area, and even took fingerprints, but no records showed that the boy ever existed. In 2016, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released a forensic facial reconstruction of the victim and added him into their database. Unfortunately, the boy has never been identified, and the case still remains open.
The severed feet mystery.
The Overtown Bridge in Dumbarton, Scotland, seems to call dogs to jump to their death. Since the early 1960s, over 50 canines have perished, and hundreds more have leapt but survived, with some returning for a second leap onto the jagged rocks that lie 50 feet below. The Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals has sent representatives to investigate the bridge, but had no luck. In terms of scientific truth, it is debatable whether dogs are capable of forming a suicide attempt. Yet, something is luring dogs off the Overtown Bridge, often from the same spot and always on sunny, dry days. Many theories have emerged, including that the bridge is haunted, a small animal is marking the area with an irresistible scent, or a sound exists below the bridge that only dogs can hear. Whatever is causing this phenomenon, dog owners crossing this bridge would be wise to take extra caution and keep their dogs on leashes.
Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappearance.
On March 8, 2014, while flying from Malaysia to China, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 passengers and crew members vanished into thin air. The global search effort, the largest in aviation history, only turned up a mere 20 pieces of aircraft debris. However, the Prime Minister of Malaysia declined to comment other than to say that the aircraft disappeared over the Indian Ocean. The lack of closure has propelled multiple theories, including a hijacking, a United States capture, a crew suicide. It was reported later that the pilot was having marital problems, a fire aboard the aircraft, vertical entry into the ocean, a meteor strike, and even an alien abduction. Despite the passage of time and the $160 million spent scouring thousands of square miles of ocean, the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 and the fate of the 239 people aboard remains a mystery.
The severed feet mystery.
In 2007, a girl was walking along a beach in British Columbia when she found a sneaker that had washed up on shore. To her horror, she found that a human foot was inside. Since then, a number of severed feet have washed ashore, belonging to 5 men, 1 woman, and 3 of unknown sex. Throughout the years, the case still remains a mystery, with many theories floating around the general public and the media as to who the feet belong to. The Vancouver police managed to identify 1 foot in 2008, matching its DNA to a man who was described as suicidal. The authorities were then able to match 2 other found feet to a woman who was also believed to have committed suicide. Because of these findings, many speculate that the feet belong to those who jumped off a bridge to their deaths. However, because of the rarity of only feet and no other body parts showing up, some believe they were those of the victims of the tsunami in 2004, since the makes of all of the shoes were manufactured before 2004. Whatever the source these feet are coming from, they have left the world and authorities stumped.
The case of Jeanette De Palma.
In 1972, in Springfield, New Jersey, a dog brought a decomposing forearm to its owner. They quickly alerted police, and this prompted a police search, and a body was soon found afterward atop a cliff. The body was identified as Jeanette De Palma, a 16-year-old girl who was missing for 6 weeks. The satanic panic grew fast and fierce. The hill where she was discovered was covered with occult symbols, and many were led to believe that her body was placed on a makeshift altar. Many locals, and even some police officers, pointed their fingers at an alleged coven of witches who were rumored to have used De Palma for a human sacrifice. Others said it was a satanic group. Because of a flood, many of the case's details have been destroyed. However, some reports from local papers mention that police couldn't determine the cause of death due to the body's decomposition. Authorities investigated a local homeless man who was a prime suspect, only to find no connection to the killing. Many believe that De Palma may have provoked a group of Satan-worshipping teens at her high school, since she was involved with a group that helped drug addicts find their faith in Christ. To this day, her death remains unsolved.